You're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.
Hey, glad you could join us for another episode of the Masterminding Success podcast. We're your hosts, Keith Wheeler.
And Nuria Colby.
And what are we talking about today, Nuria?
Today we're talking about how to delegate. And I think that's a difficult thing for me to do. What about you?
It's pretty difficult. It's hard for me to sometimes articulate what I'm looking for. You know, sometimes you don't know what you're looking for. You just know when you see something that's not what you're looking for. And also, I'm kind of a control freak, and so nobody knows how to do it better than me for my own liking. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's definitely difficult for me to delegate responsibilities.
Yeah, I've got the same problem. I'm finding it really difficult. I do everything myself as much as I can because I just feel, I don't know whether it's because I'm a control freak, because I don't think of myself as one. I think that I'm very easygoing, but when it comes to my work, I like to do everything myself. And I think part of that is because I'm learning from doing everything myself. And I like that. I like that experience. So I do all my video editing myself. I do my thumbnails myself. I do my books myself. I don't outsource covers or interiors or anything like that. The only thing I do I let my daughter do my social media, and that's about the only thing. But yeah, it's really hard, really. Do you delegate anything at all, or?
I do. And you know, you brought up a really good point. I guess I'm not really a control freak. I think it's more of, and it's not even really trust issues, but, you know, I've got a lot of things going. And so I need to make sure that I'm on track and that I'm on time with things. And being on time is very important to me. And so I think that's one reason why I have trouble delegating, is because I want, you know, if I do it myself, then I know it's going to get done the way I want it the first time. And also I know it's going to get done on time.
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably a more realistic reason than saying that I'm a control freak. But no, I have delegated some things. For my main channel, I have a video editor. Milo and I have been working together for a little over 2 years. I have a thumbnail designer, same thumbnail designer that does the thumbnails for our podcast and or for the podcast channel on the YouTube. And I just probably 3 or 4 days ago interviewed and hired, or at least testing out, my very first virtual assistant. This person's going to be taking on more of my everyday stuff, the stuff that I really am doing myself. Yeah. And that's going to be a learning curve. I'll take you along the way with me as it happens. But as of now, I'm optimistic, but nervous. You know, I think one of the biggest difficulties I had when I finally decided to find a virtual assistant was to figure out what tasks that I could entrust them with, things that I'm okay with letting go of, but also things that are still going to move the needle. Because if they're not making, and I actually mentioned this to him, is I'm like, you know, if what you're doing isn't going to make me money, isn't bringing in more money, then it doesn't make sense for me to spend money on you doing it, you know? And so, and more importantly, the more money you bring in, the more work I'm willing to give you, because it's financially paying off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you made a really good point there. And we talked about this in another episode about, you know, moving the needle and doing the tasks that actually bring your business forward. And I can see me in future maybe delegating more, because there comes a point in this business when you get really busy. I mean, we all started probably doing this as a side hustle, and then, you know, you take on more and more and more work. And there will come a point, I think, where I won't be able to do everything myself, because there are a lot of things that I have to do. They're not necessarily moving the business forward, but they still have to be done. So
Have to be done.
it would be a good idea to delegate those kind of tasks to somebody else so that we can concentrate on the things that we're actually really good at, which is, or that we have to do, like showing our face on video, or, you know, creating courses, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think there comes a point when it's a good idea to delegate, but it's just very hard. And I think a lot of people probably feel that way, you know, that they feel they rather do it themselves because then they can get it done the way they want it done. There is a saying as well, isn't there? If you want something done well, do it yourself.
Do it yourself.
I don't know if that's true, because I'm sure there are people who are better at editing videos and better at doing thumbnails than I am. But still, I'm trying to learn, so I'm sticking with it. But there will come a point when I do have to delegate. And I think that's going to be a whole set of other skills that I'm going to have to learn, because then I'm going to have to learn to deal with setting tasks, like you said. You know, you need to and I imagine that's quite difficult to set a task, or to explain to somebody how you want something done and what the ultimate goal is of that. I think that's where you're at now with your new VA, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm at the point where, you know, I've got I've got some tasks, and I kind of prepared ahead of time. Like, these are the things that either I don't enjoy doing, or I'm not that good at, or I'm not as good at as somebody else could be.
Yeah.
And or just the fact that it's time consuming. You know, it's not that difficult, but it's time consuming. Yeah. And so things like that are things that, and that's why when I reached out to my video editor, he was the first person that I had delegated responsibilities to, because I had been doing my own video editing for 3 or 4 years, but my knowledge level at video editing can only get to so high, to such a level, given the fact that I didn't have enough time to dive into it and learn and do all that other stuff. And so I was able to find a great, a guy who does it. He does amazing work, obviously, because we've been working together for over 2 years. And I think one of the biggest issues I had was being able to, and I know you'll probably have a problem with this too, is being able to come back and tell somebody that I'm not happy with the work that was done. Ask for changes, ask for, tweaks. And I kind of got used to that. I guess technically he's not my first, because I've dealt with illustrators with my children's books. And so I did have that kind of, at least in experience beforehand, telling people, hey, can you tweak this? And so that's going to be, it's going to be a little bit different with a virtual assistant, but hopefully, just like with my video editor, I would be working with them long enough to where very early on, they'll be able to learn what I like, what I don't. And I also like the idea that they're coming at it from a new perspective. This VA, as we were talking about before we started recording, is, they're not in the book world like you and I are. And so the book related stuff is completely foreign to them. So that also helped me kind of decide what tasks to give them, because obviously I'm not going to give them important book related tasks. Like, I'm not going to have you format my book or anything like that, because you're not familiar with that. But I do want to introduce them to that, so that way, not necessarily formatting, but to the book world, because there are some elements like creating A+ content. You don't necessarily have to know a lot about books, as long as you know how to use like Canva and that kind of stuff, that you can create that kind of stuff. So they're learning something new that's helping them out, but also, it's something that they can do, because I have a pretty deep backlog of books that don't have A+ content. And so that's one of the tasks that I'm going to give them.
Good. That's a good solution to delegating, really. I think, like I said, I mean, the only thing I delegate is my social media promotion. And I let my daughter do that because she's just really good at it. And she's so good at knowing my voice, how I want things to sound. You know, everything she puts online, I read it and I think this is exactly how I would say it. So that's very unusual. I think I don't think
Yes,
many
yeah.
people can do
Yeah,
that.
that's a talent right there. Yeah.
I know, yeah. But she's not only like that with me. She does social media she works for a big YouTuber now, and she's very good at picking up tones of voice and the way people want to say things. So she's very good. And the whole reason I started that is because I have no idea how to use Instagram, for example. So I'm terrible with social media. The only thing I can more or less use is Facebook, because I obviously use it for my group
Right.
and my page. But Instagram is something, and don't even talk about TikTok, because I wouldn't have a clue how to do that. So there are things which I have to delegate because I
Right.
don't know how to do them.
Right.
But if I can learn it, this is the other problem. If I think I can learn something, then it's like the video editing, for example. When I started my YouTube channel, I had no idea how to edit a video. I didn't even know what software to use, none of that. I
Right.
Googled everything and I taught myself to edit my videos on Filmora. But of course, what happens when you do it like that, you spend about 6 months learning all about it. So
Right.
there's
Right.
no way I would have that time now. At the time,
Exactly.
I wasn't a YouTuber. I wasn't as busy as I am now. So with success comes a lot of more work as well. And I wouldn't have the time now to necessarily learn something that I need to do. So I haven't got the time to learn how to work Instagram. I haven't got the
Yeah.
time to learn so many other things for which I will probably have to get someone to do it for me, and then I will have to delegate, and I will
Right.
just have to learn how to deal with that. But yeah, I think about it this way: if I come to the point where I have to delegate more stuff, that is a sign of success, probably, because I won't have time to do it. So I look at it as a good thing.
Right.
It's a bit scary. I do find it scary. I think if I analyze my feelings about it, I think I don't like to delegate because I'm afraid of something. I'm not quite sure what I'm afraid of. I think it's the having to tell someone that I don't like how they've done something. I find that hard. So I think it depends on the kind of person you are as well. Some people find it easier to delegate. Some are born leaders and they know how to delegate left, right, and center. And
Right.
I'm not that kind of person. So I find that hard. I think you probably have more experience in that, because I imagine your jobs have been, in a way, jobs where you have had to tell people what to do. So I imagine once you get used to it, it gets easier, like anything. For me, it's still a very new thing, I think, in that sense. But it's definitely something that people should consider when they're running a business. If somebody else can do a better job than you, delegate. And if somebody else can do it, and takes that and gives you more free time to do something that you're better
Right.
at, definitely a good reason to delegate. I think that's all the reasons I can think of. But
Well,
I think you
yeah,
probably agree.
and I think, yeah, I do agree with all of that. And another thing is not necessarily just something that someone might be better at than you. There might be somebody that is just as good as you are, or better, but maybe you just don't enjoy doing it,
That's a
or
good
more
point.
importantly, there's something that you would enjoy doing more.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't have time to do X that I really want to do for my business, but I don't have time to do it because I'm spending it on this. So if I hire somebody to do this that I'm good at, I mean, like when I was doing the video editing, I mean, I was good at it. I wasn't great, but I was good at it. But it freed me up to find somebody who did do it better, but also freed me up to get back to writing more books and, things like that. Things that, again, were progressing my overall business, and things that I enjoyed more than video editing. I learned what I wanted to learn from it, and also the amount of time I was spending on it. I mean, even if somebody does it just as well as I do, but they can do it in half the time, then it's just kind of a no-brainer, that frees up that much time for you to do what you enjoy doing, and they're doing it just as well as you did it, if not better. So and other things to keep in mind is whether there's something you'd rather be doing, and obviously, spending time with your family or whatever, which that's another valid point. I have more free time, not really free time, but I have more time to spend with my grandkids and my wife and children than if I was spending hours editing videos. I mean, when I was editing videos, I was usually doing that late at night when my wife was already in bed. And it sounds simple, but one of the things that I wanted to do was be able to go to the bed at the same time my wife does, something simple like that.
Yeah.
And that's what it allowed me to do, or what I used to do is I'd go to bed with her, and then when she fell asleep, I'd get back up and I'd work, but now my wife and I can go to bed. She already knew. She'd pop her head in here at like 3 a.m. She's like, "Are you still editing videos?" Yes.
Yeah.
And so now we go to bed at the same time. It sounds simple, it sounds trivial, but when you've been with the same person for 30 years, that's not trivial. That's important. And so again, just little things like that, or big things like that, depending on how you want to look at it, are also reasons to delegate. And I know one issue people may have, why they don't delegate responsibilities, why they don't hire a VA or hire a whatever, is the money. I can't afford it. And that's an absolute valid point. And that's why I said, I mean, it took me years before I hired anybody to do anything. But that said, I think, and I'm sure you can chime in on this, but I would say figure out not necessarily what that time that you'd be saving, what you can do in there. So not necessarily, I don't have time or I can't afford a video editor, but what would I do with my time for my business if I had a video editor? How much money would that bring in? And so if I'm bringing in, if I can focus on a new book, or I can focus on a new course or whatever, the money that's bringing in may help counterbalance the cost of getting a virtual assistant or a video editor or whatever.
That is such a good point. And I like the other point you made about, you can also delegate things like I said, things that someone might be better at or whatever, but you said something, something that you might not enjoy so much. So
right.
I think that this has really now made me decide I'm going to delegate my housework to somebody else.
Yeah, they make people for that.
I hate doing it. And I think somebody else would be much better than me as well. So hopefully
delegate it to your husband.
That. I've got funny, this is really strange because thinking about it now, I've got no problem delegating that. How come? Everything else was such a big question. I can't delegate this. I have to do it myself. But that is the one thing that I think I can definitely delegate.
Because that doesn't affect your business.
Maybe I really that. Maybe
I really do think that there's a fear, no matter how long you've been doing this, and no matter what your business is, in the back of your mind, there's always this fear of failure.
Yeah.
Or maybe not necessarily completely failing, but losing money, and so if you hire somebody, it's like if you had a regular business and you're hiring an employee, that person, you're paying them this money to be an employee, they may not work out. But it kind of comes with the territory, and so I think that's part of it is being that, having that fear for, if I let somebody else do it and they don't do it right, and it looks bad on my business, and then I've lost that money, and then I got to do it myself anyway. And I mean, I trust me, I know I went through all that.
Yeah.
That
actually that explains it. I think it's it's when it's to do with business. But I mean, it is to do with business, because if I delegated my housework to somebody else, I've got more time for my
Right.
business. So it's definitely related to that. I think, yeah, I think if it frees up more time, and it's like what you said earlier, if it gives you more time with your family, that is just as important as your business, if not more, So
Mhm.
so that's a really good point. And I think if you can afford it, because that's a
It
big
is.
thing as well. I mean, not everyone can afford to delegate, but once your business is at a point where you can start doing that, then it's really something that we need to consider. And it's definitely something I'm going to consider more, because I'm at that point now where my time has become more valuable than it used
Right.
to be, because now I can actually decide which things in my business are taking it forward, are going to make it bigger or better or more productive. And now it's kind of trading money for time, or the other way around. I'm not sure, but
Right.
it's where I'm at the point now where I can make those decisions. And I think it's at different stages in your business, maybe not so much at the beginning, of course, but once you reach a point where time is money, that's when I think you have to start thinking about delegating. And and if that helps your business grow, that's not a bad thing. And if that makes your products or whatever you're creating in your business better, that's not a bad thing either. So there's a lot to consider. I found this an interesting topic, because I keep thinking I'm not good at delegating, but now we've talked about it, I'm
Right.
kind of thinking, no, we can delegate. We can.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you said. For me, it's the things that I don't enjoy doing and that
Right.
free up my time to either be with my family or to produce something for the business to take it forward. So they're
Right.
the big considerations in my case. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we could do a whole nother episode on how to find someone to, to
Yeah.
hire, and, how to find the right person, those kind of things. But I want to make sure that it's clear to the listeners and viewers that are watching and listening, that it's okay if you're early on in your business and you can't afford to hire out. That's completely fine. And, but this is still a good topic to keep in mind, maybe add it to your goal list, that, and kind of like think to the future. Because I really find in my business, the more I think, within reason, but I think of the future of the business, the more that drives me, and it keeps my business growing. I feel like if you just think of where you're at now, you become more stagnant, and you just, I mean, not necessarily you're going to fail, but you don't grow, or you don't grow as quickly as you could, because you're not thinking that far ahead. And so I would say, make a little note on your phone or jot it down somewhere, what tasks you would love to hire somebody to do. And it could be hire a maid to clean my house.
Yeah.
When my business makes enough money that I can do that, that's, write it down, and again, it's something that keeps you driving you as a business owner, and driving your business forward, because you've got that goal. Obviously you want other goals, business oriented goals as well. But I think that, like I said, making a list of things that maybe you're not the best at, maybe you don't enjoy doing. I know you talked about social media. You and I are pretty much on the same two platforms. We're both on Facebook and we're both on YouTube. That's
Yeah.
it. I have accounts on pretty much all the major platforms, but I hardly ever post on Instagram. Very few videos are on TikTok. I've got a couple Pinterest boards, but that's it. Twitter or X or whatever they want to call it this week. Don't even get me started on that. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, those are things that I don't enjoy doing. Those are on my list. Like, those are on my list for things that to delegate, because I know some social media, I don't think you have to be on every platform, but I do think that some social media will help your business. It's more getting your name out there, getting discoverability. whether it's discoverability on that particular platform or discoverability on Google, indirectly, whatever. And so I do think social media is important, even if you don't enjoy it. But, if you're lucky enough like you to have somebody that you can delegate that to, then, unless you enjoy it, I mean, I still like the YouTube channel and my Facebook, I do those myself. But yeah, if you start seeing a bunch of things coming out on the other platforms, that's because I finally hired out and had somebody do it.
No, I would even go further than that. I would say that social media is essential if you have a business, but you don't have to be on all of them.
Right.
I think my daughter's done a very clever thing where she schedules the social media posts, and they actually go on all the platforms. She only creates it the once, and then they get pushed onto all the platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, all sorts of platforms. But she only has to do one, and then she puts it on a scheduler called Later, and it formats them for all the different social media platforms. So that's quite clever, and it takes less time, but it still takes a long time, and that's why I've luckily found her to do that for me. But yeah, I think it's essential. But what you said earlier, I was actually thinking on the same lines. To make a list, if you can think of all the things that you would want to delegate, if you had the money and if you had the means to do that, that can actually be a really good exercise, because if you then also think about why, then you find out a lot about yourself, and you find out maybe why you're not doing it, or maybe,
right.
I think that can give us a lot of insight. And I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a list of all the things that I would delegate, and housework was obviously the first one that came into my mind. But I'm going to think about all the other tasks as well, and then also think at the same time, why would I want to delegate? Is it because I don't enjoy it? Is it because it's taking my time from doing other things? And what are those other things that I would prefer to do? I think if you dig a little bit deeper into why we do things or why we don't do things, it's a good way to come up with solutions as well. So, I think that was a great idea of yours to make a list. Let's do that.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, I always have a list on my phone. I've got hundreds of notes in there. And the reason why is because a lot of times, like, you'll make a list to begin with, and then you won't think about it. But then when you're in the middle of doing something, like checking emails, you're like, oh, I hate doing this. Write it down, because the other thing, and it goes to what you were saying, is, why would you rather hire somebody to check your emails? Well, because I spend too many hours doing it. Absolutely. Okay, well, then maybe you don't need to hire somebody to do it. Maybe you just need to spend less time doing it, and we've talked about that in previous episodes too. That's why I check my emails the first 30 minutes of my day. And so if you send me an email in the afternoon, chances are you're not going to hear back from me until the morning. Yeah. And so those are other things, as you're jotting it down, I agree. Write down why, because you may find things that aren't going to cost you money, but can still fix that issue, or maybe it's, if it's something like, if Pinterest, like, I agree that you don't need to be on every platform. But if Pinterest or, doesn't make sense for your business, then, and you don't like doing Pinterest, well, don't do Pinterest. I mean, but, and it sounds obvious, but sometimes when, we're all creatures of habit. And if you get in the habit of going in every day, and I'm going to, like a couple boards, and I'm going to create a new one and whatever, then you just get in that habit, and you don't think of the fact that, yeah, I don't have to do this. Like, and something is as simple as just stop doing it, and just stop doing it, see how it affects it. I mean, part of this business is really trial and error, regardless of what type of business you have. Restaurants do the same thing. They'll try a new food, whatever, and see how it sells. And if it doesn't sell well, they get rid of it, And so it's the same thing with your business. So I would say, especially if you can't afford to hire out, think of alternatives, and I think making that list of what you would hire people to do for you, that you either don't think you're good at, or take us up too much of your time, or you just don't enjoy. I think those are the three key reasons, and why,
Yeah.
and then look at that and see, is there a way I can effectively eliminate this or cut back on this without hiring out, without delegating it, and you may save yourself money.
Absolutely. And even go further and think, each task you're sort of analyzing, do I even need to do this?
Right.
Is this something, because like you said earlier, sometimes we do things out of habit, or because we've always done things like this, we keep doing them like that. And sometimes you have to really reassess your whole schedule, or the way you are doing business, because times change as well, and there are things that aren't important anymore, that used to be important maybe even just 6 months ago. But things are changing so quickly these days. You have to sometimes reanalyze the whole thing. So if there's a task that you think, I really want to delegate that, is that even a task that you need to do? That's another thing you could ask yourself. Because I can think of a few that I'm doing, and sometimes I think, why am I even doing this? It's only because I got into a habit of doing it, and sometimes it's not necessary.
Or somebody else told I was listening to a podcast, and they told me I should do this, so I started doing it. And and you can do it as frequently or infrequently as you want in your business. Every year when I start setting my goals actually at the end of the year, I set it for the year to come. And I sit down and I look at what I do, not just what I do on a daily basis, but on a weekly basis, and what projects I work on. And I say to myself, is that moving the needle? I know we talk about that a lot, but is that making me money? Is it worth the time I'm putting into it? Or am I only doing it because it's a habit? Or am I only doing it because I've always done it that way? And that's another good thing about delegating responsibilities, is you get another person's perspective. Just because you've been doing it this way doesn't mean your way is the right way.
Absolutely.
Doesn't mean it's the best way. Doesn't mean it's the most efficient way, or the most effective, or most financially beneficial way. You could hire somebody that's costing you X amount of dollars, and they're doing something that you've always done, but they do it differently, not necessarily better, but differently, and differently enough to where it affects your business in a positive way and makes you more money than what they're costing you. And that's, obviously that's ideal. But as long as I'm breaking even with someone I delegate stuff to, then that's fine with me, because again, it's saving me time.
Absolutely. That actually has made me think of a low content book idea. We could make a delegation workbook.
Yeah.
Write down a list of all your tasks and then analyze each task. That could be put into a workbook, I think. It's me thinking about things again. It's I think, today was really interesting for me, because I think I've found a few answers that I didn't know I needed. So good podcast today.
We have a tendency to do that.
We do.
Well, this has been another great mastermind, Nuria. Once again, a huge thank you to all the listeners and viewers who came to tag along. If you enjoyed today's mastermind, please consider following or subscribing to the podcast, and go on and leave us a review and let us know what you thought. Until next week, I'm Keith Wheeler.
And I'm Nuria Colby.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the Mastermind today. Be sure to follow the podcast on your platform of choice, and tell a friend who would enjoy it too. Your support is greatly appreciated. This has been the Masterminding Success Podcast.